Compliance, bit of a grey area for a lot of people. The legislation for various countries around the world are different in a lot of cases. So let's continue. Just going to give a brief overview. As you're all aware, Arquebus are releasing quarterly updates. Currently, as of Friday, 25.4 will be available. It's a full release and contains the following enhancements, some of which relate to returning to work safely approach in mind. And compliance is the topic for this particular webinar. Organisations around the world are subject to various arrays of local, regional, national, international laws, regulations, standards pertaining to their properties and facilities. Organisations might also have internal policies that they need to implement and track. It's a very complex and a large number of requirements. The critical need for this to complete these requirements, because potentially there's huge financial penalties that may be incurred. Currently in the UK, health and safety have been quite hot on various things. Asbestos was the hot topic a couple of years ago, and it's been moving more into other compliance areas. Also, it's not just yourselves that need to think about this. If you utilise external or specialised contractors, they need to be aware of your requirements and your constraints. So over the years, and JC will probably put his hand up and agree, we've been championing Arquebus in more ways than one to make the data more granular in terms of legal requirements, to enable facilities managers to support currently now the return to work and maintaining a safe environment. 25.4 supports obviously the compliance aspect of it. Compliance links to, oops, the spelling there, PM procedures and compliance events calendars. The application provides a definition compliance management console task to undertake the following. I'm going to go a little bit more detail into this during a little bit of a live and dangerous demo. So we can define regulations. We can define the compliance program, the actual requirements within the program. It supports questionnaires. So rather similar to the current version, which provides detailed questionnaires for collecting of information relating to on-demand and preventative maintenance, these questionnaires have been around for a long time in compliance, but they've been enhanced. There's an overall management compliance requirements, and it's a console-driven aspect of it, which I'm going to cover as well. You can also look at various compliance items in regards to how you are prioritizing them. Locational based, because some locations might have more compliance than others. It's also integrated with Esri in terms of GIS mapping. So if you have large sites with compliance issues around those sites, then quite often integration with map services is quite a useful tool. And obviously there are calendar views and more integration with document management. Okay, defining regulations. What is a regulation? I'll allow you a couple of minutes to read this. It's quite comprehensive. So basically, there is a screen provided in the management application area, enabling you to define regulations. Regulation categories and types, so similar to sort of rooms and equipment type, etc. It can drill down. You can create new regulatory categories and regulation types. So you can build up a hierarchical tree of data. So going down from that, we have the actual compliance program. Asking another question here, what is a compliance program? It's the more granular part of the aspect of it. Get sound effects of a dog as well. The joys of home working. You know, there's some key aspects of it here in terms of energy, waste reduction, and moving forward, sort of the regulations and the standard of going back to work in a totally different environment that we've been used to in the previous, I forget how many years it would be working within software applications, but in the general working environment. This provides, again, a drill down so you can categorize and create subtypes within it. So policies and procedures, training documentations, all of these can be mandatory if you're having somebody remove your asbestos from within your organization. Do they have the right training? And the actual requirement within, so the compliance requirement. This is the bottom line, the detail aspect of it. So this enables you to group on a month-by-month basis of various items that you're inspecting and any requirements around that in terms of documentation, etc. Again, it's a simple add screen, enables you to populate the relevant information. All this is rather like background data in terms of if you're looking at your building floors and rooms or your problem types or your SLAs, etc. Questionnaires. For those that saw my last webinar, we covered quite a lot in relation to questionnaires. This is the compliance aspect of it. So as you can see, there's some examples of an environmental tour, checking things out in a hospital, cleaning, fire door checks, air quality surveys, fire life safety equipment, extinguishers, sprinkler systems, etc., alarms. All of these are compliance, emergency lighting, elevator inspections, lifts for the rest of us, but elevators in America. So the compliance management console. I've just expanded the initial part here, and we're basically looking at elevator safety. So the top level is the regulation. And as you can see, what's highlighted here is the regulation requirement. Information that, based on the category that you choose, and you provide additional information. What type of priority regulation is it, ranking-wise, etc. You can save and add new. You can copy these to others. So they provided a lot of utilities functionality to replicate information between regulations, so that if there's common information that you want to do, rather than re-enter it, you can copy it and edit it. Speeds up the process of basically loading your data. The next session is the compliance program. Bit more granular detail. Who's involved? Who's responsible? What compliance priority is this associated with? Summary information descriptions, and completion if it's critical, and when timeframes are occurring for these. Again, you can define costs against this. You can create and save and copy new ones. So if you are having an impact financially to actually have this particular compliance program, you can manage cost associated with it. And finally, the nuts and bolts. This is the requirement, drilling down to scheduling and reoccurring patterns. So for those familiar with planned maintenance, this is using a sort of similar capable generating function to generate events within the calendar. And you can associate this with a PM procedure. So you'll see over here, assign PM procedure to this. So you can associate that, and in turn, the associated work requests, which requires some manual intervention in the current versions. I know going forward there is a level of automation on the Archibus roadmap to say, okay, as soon as I define this, when it's due, it will generate the PPM work request, as well as a compliance event. They are very similar in terms of what they're recording, but you can't track all the information like risk assessments, data collecting from a Legionella inspection, etc. You might want to collect all of that information within the work request stream, but also you need to see the high level compliance events going forward. So looking at some simple compliance by priority console, as you can see, there are some nice graphics being generated here with a simple chart. So this is showing compliance levels by priority. There is also a scorecard which shows more information of which ones are the highest risk, etc. By location, so I've just highlighted one there, which is 6 in a particular building. The high compliance requirements, there are 7 in total, but 2 of them are the larger percentage in terms of what needs to be complied with. And mapping capabilities. It's a nice to have if you have Esri environments or you have your own map services. This is really cool. It's, as you can see in the demo, I've just drilled into 2 particular states in America. And as you can see, the highlighted blobs, you can change these to make them bigger, smaller, different colors, depending on the risk associated and the compliance issues around that. It's quite useful. Now, we've done this for another client where they're actually just managing smaller campuses. So you get to see all the issues around where maybe they're storing oxygen. They have oxygen storage, liquid oxygen storage. There's a compliance to manage and monitor that, etc. So if you go down to a more smaller area, then the details of all the buildings on an Esri map are very, very helpful for people to look at and to locate what's going on. The events calendar. It's a plug-in basically very similar to what they've done for reservations. It does look very similar to your Outlook, and I know the integration going forward with Arquibus is more leveraging power out of Microsoft Outlook and obviously 365 Arena. So, but as you can see, there are a color coding scheme, and you can do it on a yearly basis or a monthly basis and so on going forward. You can see what's happening on a month-by-month basis. All the highlighted areas, they'll be colored. As you can see, all these ones have been missed. Not very good. We're sitting at basically here at the moment, so yeah. So it's a good snapshot of, have you done what you are committed to doing, and can you prove it? Documentation. So basically there's a management document library. So this is documents that you've associated with a compliance requirement, but also documents to do with your results and information can be inserted back against that compliance incident or event, I should say. So you can keep a record of the inspections that are performed and any risk assessment documentation that you need to actually perform that task. So, demonstration time. I think you've all seen previous 25 versions. They've landed some quite nice information in terms of the home page. Replaces the page navigation stuff that was presented a little while ago. I actually have managed to publish a couple of new ones in this format. It's not as simple as the old solution, but I'm sure that will be improved greatly. Okay, so compliance sits under sustainability and risk. So under this, there are several things, including compliance. So, looking at the basic information, going forward, we can utilize this to maintain and update information. So very similar to most other Arquibus aspects of it, we can define various pieces of data, employees, vendors, companies, communications, etc. The compliance program manager has the ability to manage compliance with this drill down console, which I'm going to come back to later. There are managing your own events as a coordinator. So this is how you manage your contracts if you're using contracts to develop the work or to perform the tasks. There are some operational reports, work risk status reports, management reports, and background information. Now, you're probably familiar with these, which is defining your structure, buildings, floors, rooms, etc. And then define the top level compliance levels. So these are preloaded, already come with the application. If you want to adjust them, you're more than welcome to progress that through. Now, a nice feature which I'm slowly getting used to now is when I re-expand the menu structure, it takes me to where I was. The old menu down the left-hand side or the home pages will go back. I'm actually getting quite used to this, to functionality. So then we can define the regulation. I showed the screenshot earlier on. So if I pick any one, I have the ability to update. As you can see, as normal, Arquebus standard features. Now there's some basic information here: financial regulations, accounting, reporting, and so on. If I add new, I can add a category. Demo. So now if I pick into here, add new type, so as you can see, it's built my tree up. So these are your legal laws in effect. So for asbestos in the UK, it's MDS 100. Going forward for Legionella, there are regulations for containment and management of Legionella. Emergency lighting standards, requirements for that, etc. But they've also included employee rights, which obviously varies from country to country. And then environmental issues, which is a big thing: energy, green buildings, chemical, hazardous chemicals, etc. And then we get down to the program. So if we're looking at IT, security training, licenses, permits, training procedures, etc. So training, I would expand on So these are sort of things that I think you need to think about. What are you expecting to maintain your business in terms of that? It could also be working back safely. What constraints have I put? How many people are allowed in the building? And am I going to do checks and audits on that to make sure my environment is safe for everybody? So I would put in a compliance program based around what's the capacity of my building, and you can build questionnaires up associated with that to say, okay, I'm going to go and inspect this building. Currently, it's allowed for 35 people. I've gone in there, and actually, there's 40 people in there. So I'm actually breaking my own rules and regulations around that aspect of it. So there are some notifications and messages associated with it, which sends out events, etc. I'm not going to cover that in too much detail. What I'm going to go back to is the main, oops, not this one, this one. So this is the console for managing all requirements. So if I look at my elevator safety, I can populate cost structures associated with that based on information, percentage of VAT, the contract costs, baseline costs, etc., hourly rates for staff that are performing work on an hourly basis, etc. So this is building up my sort of financial information relating to that. Copy is new. Will enable me to create another version of this. I can choose cleaning, for example, today, and save. Things that I want to copy. So as you can see, it's populated all the information below it. Now I've gone to the extreme there and picked something that's probably not relevant, but as you can see, if you select the relevant things you want to when it pops up with the dialog, then you can create and update the records as you see fit. So if I look at inspections now, this is all the associated aspect of it. I can generate events replacing future ones based on information that I populate here. The duration, any schedule buffer, i.e. flexibility, when do I want it to start, when do I want it to finish, and I can create the relevant events. So the PM procedures, you need to associate PM procedures. So this looks up to the PM procedures. I don't know whether there's a lift one in here. There might well be. No. There is a fire door one there, monthly fire doors. So I think we've got fire doors as well. No, there's no fire doors. As you can see, we can associate any of the procedures we want. And you can have more than one procedure associated with that particular events, calendar events as well. The recurring pattern, monthly, the first Thursday of the month, save. For those of you with clunky old laptops, don't try and do that in IE11. It doesn't display it very well. It's fine in Edge and it's fine in Chrome. But in the older browser versions, some of these aspects of it don't display very well. So I'm now going to move forward to some of the more reporting functionalities. But before I do that, have a look at this aspect of it. So as you can see, you can build up information and associate more and more pieces of data to that event. So now I've assigned the asbestos certification checks and license renewal to other buildings and other people that are working within those buildings. It's a very powerful tool. We cover this in quite an in-depth training session when we're training this application. I think this and the previous console are the two areas that you spend probably about 90% of your time in. Going forward, operational reports. Calendar, compliance events calendar. So I've just chosen that, and something badly because there's no events there. So clear. So I'm choosing so the yearly one is looking at it month by month basis. As you can see, some of these are crossed off, and I can drill in and look at the event and any question information that's associated with it. That's a little bit slow. One of the things I have fed back in a couple of areas is slightly slower than the previous version, so waiting for feedback on that aspect of it. Questionnaires. So these are the types of questions that you can build up. There are some good examples in the standard application sample database. This is basically a preview of what the questionnaire would look like. And as soon as I select a failure, what was the issue? As you can see, quite comprehensive set of information there. So I've been using this to sort of test questionnaires that I've been putting together for other parts, and on the last webinar for the maintenance I covered this. But it's an area that I think is very important to going forward with the application in your own environment. This is quite a comprehensive one. It's not dissimilar to what we do when we do our hospital. We have several NHS hospital trusts that we work with, and basically a series of questions about is the environment clean? Has it been cleaned? Are there any hazards within that environment? It's that type of questionnaire. So, are all areas used by patients neat, clean, blah, 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 etc. Yes. When I pick on the nose, it will then prompt me for other information. So this is quite, as you can see, there are 67 questions associated with an audit of a hospital. I don't know why environmental tour is, but then again, archivists have some very strange wording terminology. As you can see, as soon as I say no, I'm expected to put some information about that. So, and this information is also available on the mobile. So when you're working on the mobile, when you look at a compliance event, this is what you'll be questioned on for collecting of information. There are violations where something has actually not been maintained correctly. So as you can see, this particular person has their license has expired, so they can no longer perform asbestos inspections. Permits to work. I think in the more environments now, accountability is important. So if I'm going back to the back at work safely aspect of it, compliance audits for occupation of the buildings, and are all the cleaning stations populated correctly with all the relevant items like sanitizer and towels that are needed. These are sort of things that I think going forward are going to be more and more crucial, because at the moment there isn't an end in sight for the current COVID situation. I think this needs to be managed in a much more structured and robust way. You can look at this information within drawing environments. Good grief. My house is shaking. We're having a demolition in the school behind us at the moment. And there we go. there's a particular event in terms of a cleaning regulation in that particular location. So it's probably a kitchen area. Extract would view. So this is the type of powerful tool that's available to anybody that is working for the facilities teams going forward. And a map. So at the moment, only America has problems, as you can see, ranging from Texas all the way up to Boston. So you can click on any one of these incidents and show the details. We'll tell you what the regulation is. You can also go into the actual fine detail here as well. I chose one with no records. Let's see. Apologies for that. Not picking up one that I should have checked earlier. That is basically high-level overview compliance. We have five clients that have bought into the application going forward. I think 2 of them are quite busy with, and the other 3 are not so busy. But we're trying to engage now with the new version because there's more flexibility and functionality has been provided within the application. Okay. Going back to my PowerPoint. So, does anybody have any questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and fire away.
Martin, it's Wayne. Can you assign more than one person to the compliance check? So basically what I'm asking is if a guy's on holiday and he's away, can somebody else pick up his work?
Yes, you can. You can assign multiple people to it using that screen that I showed you about location and priorities, etc.
And the other one is is there like a ability there to do email notifications to remind people that they need to be doing it?
Yes, there's a whole suite of notifications that go out at various stages, and they're user definable, so you can create your own notification messages.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any more? JC?
No, I'm happy, and I've learned some of the functionality of the system. So yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Do you have anybody going forward with this at the moment?
Yeah, we've got 2 clients, but they don't know where to start, so they need some guidance on where to start. What we actually utilize is the questionnaire.
Yeah, that's a good space to
for
start.
some of the clients.
Yeah.
That's potent, and it's quite very flexible.
Yeah. Well, if you need anybody, if you need to talk to me or me to talk to them, more than happy to do that on your behalf.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. But thank you for this.
Yeah, it's been
I enjoyed it.
Good. Anybody else? Okay. I'm just gonna some takeaways. Flexible compliance definitions. You can custom these to suit your own legal requirements wherever you are in the world. The integration with documents, I think, is key. And the integration with preventative maintenance is very critical for this going forward. So we're going to be covering commissioning, following on from compliance, some of the things about construction, the handing over of a building after it's been commissioned. It's an application that I think has been forgotten within the Archibus suite. And I think it's quite important, especially now with if you're refurbing or changing your building to match your current occupancy requirements based under COVID, then I think the commissioning aspect of it is quite key. And that will be on the 24th of February. Again, same time.
Hi, I'm Polly from the marketing team at MAS. Thank you for attending today's compliance webinar. I'll be shortly emailing across a survey, so please do let us know your thoughts on today's event. If you have any topics you'd like us to cover in our future webinars, please don't hesitate to contact me at polly.feeney@mas-plc.com. Thank you once again for your time, and we hope to see you at our future events.